Dana Reeves had built the brief herself. She knew every line of it, every exhibit, every gap she'd quietly widened into a canyon. So when the courtroom doors opened on a Tuesday morning in Millhaven and she watched Joel Carr walk in, a lean man in a borrowed-looking jacket, a yellow crayon drawing rolled under his arm like it was the most natural thing in the world, she told herself the day was already decided. She was 26 and had been with Hargrove family law for 8 months. She was good at her job. She believed she was on the right side of most things. Marcus Hargrove was already at the plaintiff's table, his silver cufflinks catching the fluorescent light as he adjusted his notes. Across the aisle, Joel set his folder down beside a young woman Dana recognized from the brief as Patrice, his sister, who'd agreed to be present but had no legal standing. Joel glanced once at the gallery and gave Patrice a small nod. He did not look at Hargrove. The case was straightforward, on paper. Sandra Carr, née Phelps, was petitioning for sole custody of their 7-year-old daughter, Wren, citing instability, 3 job changes in 4 years, a rented apartment over a dry cleaning shop, no college degree, and a work schedule that left him, the petition read, routinely absent during critical developmental hours. Hargrove had Sandra on the stand first. She was composed, tearful at the right moments, and described a father who loved his daughter but lacked the structure a child needed. The principal of Wren's school, a man named Aldous Park, testified next. He was professional, measured. Wren was a bright girl, he said. She often came to school tired on the days after her father's overnight shifts. He had concerns. Dana watched Hargrove guide each witness the way a skilled conductor draws out a phrase, gently, convincingly, until the courtroom felt that the picture was simply true. Then it was Joel's turn to cross-examine. He didn't have an attorney. He had asked for a continuance to hire one, the court had granted him 30 days, and he had come back at the end of them without one. Dana had noted that in the file with a small, private confidence. Self-represented litigants rarely knew what they didn't know. Joel stood at the lectern and asked Principal Park a single question. Mr. Park, in the 4 years Wren has been enrolled at Millhaven Elementary, how many times has she been disciplined for behavior? Park blinked. I'd have to check the records. I have them here. Joel produced a single printed page. May I approach? The judge nodded. 0, Mr. Park. 4 years. Not one referral, not one detention, not one incident report. Is that consistent with a child who lacks structure at home? Park said he couldn't speak to that directly. No further questions, Joel said, and sat down. It was a small point. Dana told herself it was a small point. Hargrove's opening argument came after lunch. It was polished and relentless. He cited the 3 positions Joel had held in 4 years, a delivery route, a warehouse shift, a part-time gig driving for a hotel shuttle, and asked the court to imagine what that instability looked like from a 7-year-old's perspective. He paused at the right moment. He let the silence do its work. He cannot keep a job, Hargrove said, and his voice carried the particular certainty of a man who had won this argument before. He cannot provide the foundation this child deserves. A father's love, Your Honor, is not sufficient when the electricity is 3 weeks past due. Dana had pulled that utility bill herself. She did not look away from her notepad. Joel was called to give testimony. He did not grip the railing. He did not lean forward. He sat in the witness box the way a man sits when he has already decided that the truth is the only available strategy. He answered the questions about the 3 jobs without hesitation. The delivery route had paid well, he said, but the schedule was unpredictable. Sometimes he'd been called in at 2 in the morning, and he didn't trust Wren to wake up alone in an empty apartment. He'd left it. The warehouse shift had come with mandatory overtime that ran past her school release time 3 days a week. He'd left that too. The hotel shuttle had been a stopgap for 7 weeks while he completed a recertification course. Recertification for what? The judge asked. His name was the Honorable Walter Breen, and he had been presiding over Millhaven Family Court for 22 years. Emergency medical technician, Your Honor. And the state firefighter exam. I passed both. Hargrove was on his feet. Objection, relevance. He's testifying about his employment history and you raised it, Mr. Hargrove, Judge Breen said evenly. Sit down. Mr. Carr, please continue. Joel reached into his folder and produced a single stapled document. I've been employed full-time at Station 7 of the Millhaven Fire Department for the past 14 months. I work a standard rotation, 24 on, 48 off. My daughter lives with me for 18 days out of every 28. She is 7 years old and she knows how to make her own toast and she reads chapter books at a 5th grade level. I have not missed a parent-teacher conference. I have not missed a school play. I have not missed a doctor's appointment. He paused. I did miss one dentist appointment, in February, because there was a structure fire on Reese Avenue and I was inside it. The courtroom was very quiet. Hargrove recovered quickly. He asked about the apartment, a 2-bedroom above a dry cleaning shop on Vance Street. Was that a suitable environment? Joel said the windows opened onto a courtyard where Wren had planted 3 tomato seedlings in May, and that she had named them Gerald, Captain, and Mrs. Bloom, and that 2 of them had produced fruit last summer. That is not what I asked, Hargrove said. No, Joel agreed, but I thought the court might want to know who she is. Dana looked up from her notepad for the first time in several minutes. Hargrove pressed on. The utility bill. 3 weeks past due, the amount $112. Joel said he'd paid it on the following Thursday. He'd had an unexpected car repair that month. Hargrove asked if that was the kind of financial management the court should trust with a child's welfare. Joel said he'd gone without lunch for 2 weeks to cover it and that Wren had not known, and that he had not wanted her to know. Judge Breen leaned forward. Mr. Carr, you indicated you have additional documentation you'd like to offer. Yes, Your Honor. Joel reached into his folder a second time. He produced 2 items. The first was a standard personnel file summary, 8 pages, issued by the Millhaven Fire Department's Human Resources Division. The second was a piece of paper that had clearly been folded and unfolded many times, crayon on construction paper, orange and purple, a drawing of a man in a yellow coat with the word Dad printed above it in uneven letters and a smaller figure beside him, holding hands. I'd like to enter both into evidence, Joel said. The first is my service record. The second is a card my daughter made me last Thanksgiving. She put it in my jacket pocket the morning of the hearing. I didn't find it until I got here. Hargrove objected to the card as not probative. Judge Breen looked at it for a long moment. I'll decide what's probative in my courtroom, Mr. Hargrove. He set the card carefully to the side. Proceed. Judge Breen read the personnel file silently while the courtroom waited. He was not a man who showed much on his face. But Dana watched his eyes move down the pages and then stop and go back up. When he looked up, he addressed Hargrove directly. Counselor, were you aware that Mr. Carr has received 2 departmental commendations in 14 months of service? That he was formally recognized by the city's fire marshal for a rescue performed in March of this year involving 2 occupants in a collapsed interior stairwell? That his supervisors have submitted his name for a merit citation that is currently under review? Hargrove said he had not had access to sealed personnel files. It is not sealed, Judge Breen said. It is a public employee record. You had to request it. He set the file down. You chose not to. The silence in that courtroom was different from the silences before. The ones before had been the quiet of people watching a man be measured and found wanting. This one was the quiet of people who had just been shown how narrow their measuring stick was. Dana had stopped writing. Hargrove attempted a redirect. He argued that professional commendations were separate from the question of parental stability. Judge Breen let him speak. Then he said, quietly, Mr. Hargrove, you told this court that your client's primary concern was the welfare of the child. You told this court that Mr. Carr cannot keep a job and cannot provide a foundation. You did not tell this court that Mr. Carr has spent the last 14 months running into burning buildings. I find that omission significant. He ruled from the bench, which was unusual. Joint legal custody, primary physical custody to Joel Carr, with generous scheduled parenting time for Sandra. He also noted, for the record, that Mr. Hargrove's characterization of the respondent's employment record had been materially incomplete, and that the court would be submitting a referral to the State Bar's Professional Conduct Committee for review. Sandra wept, not from victory, but from something less easy to name. Patrice put her arms around Joel and he stood still in them, his hands at his sides, and Dana, from 3 rows back in the gallery, watched his face and saw nothing that looked like triumph. He looked the way a man looks when the worst is over and the ordinary morning is just ahead. She left before he turned around. 8 months passed. Dana gave her notice at Hargrove Family Law on a Friday in February, 2 weeks after she'd watched Hargrove conduct a deposition in a separate matter and recognized the same technique, the selective file, the strategic omission, the portrait painted with the facts you choose to show. She had told herself, the day of Joel Carr's hearing, that it had been a single lapse in due diligence. She could not tell herself that twice. She did not have another job lined up. She had her bar exam scheduled for the spring. She had an apartment with a good window and enough in savings to carry her 4 months. She drove to Station 7 on a Tuesday morning in March because she had started and deleted a letter 3 times and decided that the only honest thing was to say it in person. The station sat on the corner of Palmer and 9th, a low brick building with 2 truck bays and a flag that moved in the cold wind off the river. A man was washing down the concrete apron in front of the bays with a long-handled brush, working in the slow, thorough way that meant the work itself was the point. He did not look up when she parked. She walked across the lot and stopped a few feet away, and he straightened and looked at her, and she watched him find her face and take a moment to place it. "You were in the gallery," he said. "I drafted the brief," she said. "I was the one who," she stopped. "I wanted to say I was sorry. I thought I understood the situation and I didn't." He looked at her for a long moment. Not hard. Not warm, exactly, not yet. The way a person looks when they're deciding whether the words are real. "You have a remarkable daughter," Dana said. "I read the card when the judge passed it to the clerk. Gerald, Captain, and Mrs. Bloom." Something shifted in his face. 2 out of 3 made it last summer, he said. Mrs. Bloom gave up in July. Wren held a small funeral. She said Mrs. Bloom had lived a full life and we should respect that. Dana laughed before she could decide whether it was appropriate, and then she put her hand over her mouth and said, "I'm sorry." "Don't be," he said. "She made us wear the good hats." They stood on the concrete apron in the cold March wind, and Dana told him she was leaving the firm, and he told her that Station 7 had a community outreach coordinator who kept threatening to retire and who was very bad at paperwork. He said it the way people say things that are more of a question than they look. She said she still had her bar exam in April and he said he supposed they had a little time. Wren was at school. She would be picked up at 3. Joel had the day rotation. The flag on the corner of Palmer and 9th moved in the wind, and the flag was not a symbol, it was just a flag, and the morning was ordinary in the way that mornings are when the worst is behind you and the people you love are where you can reach them. That was enough. That was, by any honest measure, more than enough.